from there. So with that, thank you guys again. Thanks for jumping on today. As for some of you that maybe not know who I am, I'm Mike Condon. I have the pleasure of being our Vice President of Franchise Development here at HomeWell. Two of my great team members here, Trey Johnson and Jared Nassif, on here as a couple of our franchise development team. Again, our role here in franchise development is to educate. We want to educate you on the process. What does it look like to be a owner here at HomeWell? Let's talk about the industry. Let's talk about your concerns, right? Anytime you're looking at starting a business opportunity, you should have concerns. Unless you know everything about everything, which most people don't, you're going to have questions and concerns. And our job is to help you get through that, answer those questions to the best of your ability, and really be able to get you to a point where you're making an educated decision. And we're making an educated decision on you, whether this is a right fit to move forward as business partners in this type of business. So again, anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A. We'll get to those as we go. But one of the first questions I want to kick off with is why? Why this industry versus a lot of others? We all know, we hear the stats that 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 every single day. The ironic part is that is actually an old stat. 11,500 now are turning 65 every single day, and that's going to continue for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It is an unprecedented trend that we're seeing in this marketplace. When you look at businesses and when you look at opportunity, compound annual growth rate, things of that nature, when you're looking at a business, you want to look at what is customer demand going to look like, not only short term, but long term. And when you look at this industry as a whole, it's only going to continue to grow with the number of adults that are continuing to want to be at home and want to have that care at home. So it's going to continue to get better and better and better. And now is the time. And as we've seen over the last specifically 5 years, the industry just continuing to grow. There's going to be over 522 billion spent in this industry alone, right? So think about that from a numbers perspective. If you come into this business and you're able to get a fraction of that, you can run a very successful home care business. And that's what we help our owners, really strive to do each and every day. So it's a great
Mhm.
time to be looking at this industry. It's only going to continue to grow. And the support and resources for this industry, not only from people like ourselves, like franchisors and independent businesses, but from other agencies, from the government, are only going to continue to expand because of the need of this industry. So, Jared, Trey, did I miss anything on that one?
No, I would say and I actually want to kick it to Drake because I've learned a lot from him about it beyond the financial potential and the growing industry and the future landscape, all those things. Why home care? One of the things I always talk about with my clients, learning kind of from Trey, is the idea of, does this fit you? Like there's a number of industries to really get into. You could not home care, you could look at automotive. You could look at home services and restoration work. You could work at fitness and health. There's so many different industries. So another way to kind of unpack this question would be, is this the right industry, the right space for you? Is this something you can be, right, Craig? Is that kind of how you would say about that too? Like it's got to be the right fit for you. You have to be getting out of bed, excited about this in the morning, you know?
Absolutely. No question about that. I address that with candidates right at the beginning. What is your why? Why this industry? And obviously, we look at our successful franchisees that are open right now, and all of them kind of answered that question on the front end. As we go back
Right.
and do an analysis of our successful franchisees, and I think when you get through the validation calls, you'll hear that from them.
Yeah.
This they had a passion for it every day. They understood what they're doing is incredibly important to
Yeah.
their customers and their clients and their family members, even more
Yeah.
importantly. And just cutting down on, we say cutting down on hospital readmission rates, but it's also just quality of life
Right.
for primarily our seniors, but obviously we service other people as well. But that's who we're looking for. Somebody that has a passion. We know that we have a good return on investment, and
Right.
we
Yep.
have a good value proposition for building generational wealth and being your own boss and all that. But behind it, what is your reason for why you chose this space?
Yeah.
We're extremely interested in hearing that, and hearing your
Yeah.
story as to why you selected this one, because we know that at the end of the day, that's going to become important down the road as
Yeah.
far as your motivation and what continues to drive you day after day and month after month and year after year to
Yeah.
being successful in this space. And,
Yeah.
we've got a lot of happy and excited owners on the other side of this that are glad to share their experience. But we don't know till we go through the process and find out whether or not it makes sense for us and it makes sense for you. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've heard Mike, I've heard you say this too. Like when you like why home care is because you have to be someone that cares about people. Yes, you
Yeah.
care about profit. No one gets into business without caring about profit, without making money, without wanting to make money. However, in this industry, I'm not sure you can get away with the concern for profit superseding your concern and care for people. That's got
Yeah.
to be priority here.
Yeah, that's number one in this industry. And our franchisees will tell you at the end of the day, when they go to bed at night, the number one thing they think about is, "Wow, I helped a lot of people today." And when you combine that passion and that
Yep.
drive and run a successful business, it definitely makes it worthwhile. So yeah,
Yep.
it's definitely a great place to be in, and an exciting up and continuously up and coming, which sounds weird to say. We've been doing this for 20 years, but it's continuously up and coming from an industry standpoint as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Do I need healthcare experience? We get this question from everybody, especially the ones that don't have healthcare experience. Here's what I'll tell you: you don't. And I have very specific reasons why. 48% of our owners here at HomeWell do not have a healthcare background, nor have they ever actually ran a business. Why is that important? Because we can train you on how to run a business.
Yep.
We can train you on home care and healthcare and all the terminology. We have our training platforms. That's what it's designed to do. What I can't train you to do is get up, work hard, be coachable, and engage, right? When we
Yeah.
look across our franchise owners that are successful in this space, we have a lot that have healthcare experience. We have a lot that do not have healthcare experience. It's across the board. So when you come in, you're going to get to learn from both sides of that fence. One of the great joys of joining a franchise is you get to talk to all the other owners, right? And we're over 100 owners strong now. And again, a lot of those owners do have healthcare experience, and a lot of them do not. So you're going to get to see both sides of that coin when it comes to talking with our owners. But I will tell you, the ones that come in with an open mind, the people that come in that are coachable, that really engage with the franchisor, that is the key to any franchise. The more you engage, the more you're going to get out of it. And it's no different here. So when I say that, what does engagement mean? Well, as you go through our education process and as you go through, you decide to join our HomeWell team and we decide to award you a territory, you're going to be on our learning management platform, right? You're going to be
Yeah.
engaging with our opening services team. You're going to be asking questions. You're going to be learning.
Mhm.
At times it probably seems a little daunting, like how am I going to learn all this stuff? But it comes in bite-sized pieces, and we're going to teach you all of those things that you don't know about, and we're going to allow you to really use your skills in the areas that you do know about. That's really the sweet spot with this industry and with this business model specifically, is if you come in and maybe you have a stronger marketing or sales background. You know that part of it. Let's teach you about it, how it specifically is relevant to this industry, but let's also get you really up to speed on some of the other things that maybe you lack in it from a knowledge base just because you haven't had experience in it. That's really where that training and support is going to come in and really allow you to flourish in the areas that you need help in, and that's why you partner with a franchisor. That's our job, is to make sure that where you're strong, we can help you and become really, really. I'm sorry, where you're weak, you can become very strong to
And
help.
where you're strong will help you
Where you're
become
strong, we're
stronger.
only going to
Yeah.
put gas on the fire, right, Jared?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, Trey and Jared, you guys know, you
yeah,
guys talk to candidates every day as well. We get this question all the time.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll interject here. In my short time period here, I've had four of my uh, candidates that were awarded franchises have already opened, none of which had healthcare experience. And I asked one of the recent ones that's in Temple, Texas, my friend Dillop, is there anything I can tell candidates that's different than what you heard during the discovery process? And he said, well, let's talk about Launchwell. He goes, he was in Texas, which is a licensure state, but I think it only took him about 45 days to get his license.
Hmm.
And he was really excited to get open quickly. But then he came back and told me, he goes, the amount of content that I had to digest in the openings process before I opened was a solid, 2 to 3 months of going at it every day just to digest it. And he goes, I didn't know it was going to be that intense, that it was going to be that thorough of a orientation into the brand before I opened. And he was very thankful for it. But he said, even if you want to open in 30 days, it's not possible because of the amount of content that you provide prior to opening is so robust that you may want to communicate that. Well, to me, that's a great message to communicate that it's that robust that it takes 3 months because as a couple of all of us on the screen, we've worked with different brands at different times in the past. And that's one of the first things we look at is how robust is their openings process and how well do they prepare the candidate to open. And I've yet to be at a franchisor that has put this much money and resources into the front end. So I'm blown away by it. And I think it's something that people should have some confidence in, that we're going to guide you in that process. You're going to be ready to open when you open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's key. Awesome. Great. Treg, you led us into our next question. Well, how long is it going to take me to open? Right. There are a lot of variables when it comes to launching a business, and here in a home care space, it's no different. 33 states require you to have some sort of personal care license. As Treg said, in Texas, it could take as little as 45 days. In some other states, it could take up to 6 to 9 months, depending on the state regulations and the state themselves. And this goes for the whole home care industry. This isn't specific to HomeWell. This is for the whole home care industry, whether you're a franchise, you're an independent, or however you're going to launch that business. If you need a license, you need a license. They don't care what type of business it is as far as a franchise or non-franchise. So what do you do, right? Like the question becomes, okay, well, if I'm in a licensure state, what does that look like for me if it takes me, 4 months to get my license? There's a lot. There's a lot to do. And as Treg alluded to, and what Jared said, our Launch Well and our learning lab guides you through that process along with all of your training that is going to allow you to, get that license process going, get submitted for your license, and then really set you on your path for that education and learning about the industry and all the things you need to do prior to launching your business. Definitely don't look at licensing, or if it takes you a little longer to get open, as a negative, right? We look at it as a positive in the fact that, one, it's regulated, right? So you can't go into, you just can't, not everybody can open up a home care business in that area because there is this process they have to go through in order to get launched. Secondly, it gives you time. It gives you time to really understand the business, get your team in place, really get your foundations ready to go prior to launching your business. And that's not to say that in non-licensure states, I live in Michigan, for example, there is no licensure process. We can have you open as quickly as you want, within reason, right? And when I say within reason, you're still going through all the same training that somebody else does that's in a licensure state. You just don't have that process of having to wait for a license. So really, we're committed to providing you all the tools you need, from whether you're in a licensure state or non-licensure state. Our strict guidelines run the same, right? We're going to make sure you have everything ready to go in the right order, in the right time, in order to launch a successful business, because that's what it's about. Again, the nice thing about licensure sometimes is if you're still continuing to work a job, work the job, right? Bring that income in, continue to do that, because that's going to allow you, again, once you're ready to step into this full time, that confidence to go ahead and do that with keeping an income. We know that's a big part of it. We get that question all the time. So, Jared, did I miss anything on that
Well,
one?
I wanted to ask you, Mike, like a lot of times people are concerned about the licensure, but that really isn't a concern on our end. It hasn't been a problem for us. We get people open eventually. Depends on the
Yep.
time frame.
Yep.
What is the biggest concern though when it comes to getting someone open? What's the biggest reason that caused people not to get open?
Funding, right? Having a sound funding strategy. So one of the things we really talk about during the education process is hey, what does that funding strategy look like? We do not want to
Uh,
award a territory to somebody if they are having questions about funding, right? That doesn't set you up for success. It doesn't help us out at
right.
all. And we want to make sure that the person that's going into this business is set up for the greatest success that they can have. So the one of the things we always tell candidates, especially early on in the process, is if you haven't thought about how you're going to fund a business, whether it's HomeWell or otherwise, get that figured out or at least start
Yeah.
that process. We have a lot of great resources. There are a lot of great resources out there in the franchising community that can
Yeah.
help you from a funding strategy, whether it's an SBA loan, a rollover 401k program. There's a lot of options out there for you. It just depends on which one's right for you. Home equity loans. There's a lot of different
Right.
ways to go about it. So I would tell you that, if you haven't started that conversation from a funding standpoint yet, do it. It doesn't hurt you. They're not going to bite your head off. There's some great resources that we can provide as well. But I would tell you, Jared, that's a great number one reason
Yeah.
why people get into this business and then don't make it open is from a funding standpoint.
Yep.
Yeah,
Spot on.
great question. So speaking of funding, man, you guys are just teeing it up here. How much does it cost? Um,
It's
part
like we've heard these questions before.
Man, oh man, this
Easy.
is like not the first time, guys. I'm proud of it. We're actually killing it. From our standpoint, we in our franchise disclosure document, we have our item 7, and it lists out all the initial costs of what that looks like, right? So from that standpoint, when somebody signs on with us, everybody pays a $5,000 training fee. That's the door to get the door open. Our franchise fee is 49,500. And our estimated range of investment ranges anywhere from 52,000 to 225,000. That's a wide range, and there's very specific reasons for that. Part of your education and due diligence process with us is we're going to walk you through a unit economic workbook that's going to show you those costs, break those costs down, and having it help educate you on why the range, what could yours look like. I will tell you our average investment is right around that 150 to 250 $200,000 mark. That's where most of our owners come in at. That's where we're comfortable with our owners coming in at. And that's really kind of where most people fall. Again, the nice thing about HomeWell here is we have a couple different ownership options. What does that mean? Well, when you pay that $5,000 training fee, that kind of gets you in the door. Then you have up to 150 days or until your agency doors open to determine if you want to pay that franchise fee or not. We obviously still require you and ask for you to, hey, do you have that liquid? You're going to have costs that are going to come up during that openings process. So we go over all of that for you. But we do have an option where if you choose to say, hey, I'm going to take that 49,500 and I'm going to pay myself for the first 3 months. I'm going to hire another employee. I'm going to invest in my business. You would pay an elevated royalty of 10% versus 5% up until a predetermined amount. And then it drops back down once you hit that amount. Again, a lot of details there. We can go over all of this for you, but a lot of different options to make sure that you're using your capital the best way you see fit to launch your business and to be the most successful that you can.
Yeah.
So that's a great one.
Mhm.
Treg, can I do this part-time? What are
Uh,
your thoughts?
well, I get that question often. I say yes and no is the answer. But starting out, obviously, we would like our owners to be in the business, running it, to kind of learn it from the ground up. I talk a lot about possibly, filling one of the roles, whether it's the scheduler or the sales, marketing, PR person out in the field. And then as you get busier and scale up, you'll become more of the CEO. It all depends on your resources. Obviously, on the ground at the start, we like to see somebody with an equity interest in the building, so to say. Nobody's going to run your baby like you run it at the end of the day. That's been proven over and over again. There's lots of different ways to do that. We have a lot of owners that now are at the stage to where they can run their business semi-absentee or maybe even close to complete absentee, but they've grown into that place. They didn't start day one in that position because they got in there, learned their business, grew their business. They knew what the metrics, the KPIs were. They hired and paid the right people to run it at that point. But they didn't know who the right people were until they learned the business inside and out, and had gone through some trial and error. So it's definitely something that I know that people get into business ownership A lot of them want to get to that point, but it just doesn't start day one. That's not kind of how we're set up. We need somebody that's going to have a vested interest in there to run it every day. And a lot of the reason for that is what we're doing is critical. It's critical to the customers that we serve. And we take that responsibility very seriously, both from a franchisor standpoint and I believe from a franchisee standpoint. And I think that's what's fueled a lot of our growth is that our owners are involved in their business. They know what's going on. Even if they're semi-absentee, they can still tell you all the metrics. They probably tell you what they grossed last week.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, you want to get to that point, but you've got to learn the business. I don't care what the business is, whether it's in-home care. It's just what we're doing is so important to the families we serve and their family members. A lot of the people that are paying for our services don't live where the client is, the end user that's receiving those services. They're scattered all over the country as far as kids or family members. So they definitely rely on our service, and that's why, we're kind of set up that way.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, active owner. That's the term we like to use here at HomeWell is active owner. Active owner has a lot of different definitions, and part of as you go through the onboarding process and you're working with our opening services team, that's going to come a lot more clear to what that active owner role means for you. I can tell you from a metric standpoint, the owners that go in day one when they officially open their doors day one and they're all in, they scale faster. That's the data, that's the metric. However, everybody's situation is a little bit different. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And I think, having an educated conversation around your situation and what does that look like is the best way for us to uncover how would that make sense for you and what does that look like with in turn with the business model. So yeah, it's a great point, Trey. All right, last one. Oh, we never get this one. How do I get clients? And more importantly, how do I get caregivers? I think that there's two questions in there. This business is all about people, as Jared said earlier. It's getting clients and caregivers and having those two wheels going in the same direction all day, every day. How do we do that? Well, there's got to be a strategy. And I think one of the things we do exceptionally well here at HomeWell is have a strategy for each part of your business because they are two different strategies. So how do we get clients? Well, it's knowing where to find them, knowing where to look. Who are we going to talk to? What marketing resources do you have in order to engage people to really drive that engagement from a client perspective? What tools do we have? We have all of that here at HomeWell. On the flip side of that, caregivers. Caregivers are the lifeblood of the business. They're the ones that are going into the homes and taking care of the clients. So how do we get those? Well, there's again a lot of different resources in order to do that. But the most important part with caregivers is not getting them, it's keeping them. So we have a very strong retention plan. What does that look like to keep them past 90 days? Because we know if you keep them 90 days, they're going to stay with you long term. So a lot of different strategies, but very simple ones to execute on. And if you execute well, you're going to be ahead of the game when it comes to both of these clients and caregivers. And how do you get them and keep them more importantly? So, Jared, what about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and your director, whether it's me, Trey, or Jack, can send you some resources and videos as well on each of these clients as far as what our marketing resources go to, whether it's helping you with local and or from a national level. We have a pretty eclectic suite of marketing resources available to you because that is how you make money, right? That's where the service, that's where the business comes from is the clients. And the caregivers it's usually a pretty common concern and fear of how do I get enough caregivers? And the my answer is it's actually I think the fear is in the wrong place there because getting caregivers is actually kind of the easier part. And it is a silver bullet for the most part, like a formula for the most part. We can show you how to do that. We have franchisees all over the place doing it all the time.
Yeah.
The concern should be more on how do you keep the good ones? We'll help you with that too, but that largely comes down to you being invested into your business. And as Mike often says, don't be a crappy boss, you know?
There you go.
But
That's it.
yeah,
It's what all life comes down to today, right? Is just be
yeah,
be a great leader of your people,
Yeah.
because that's what this business is all about, is leading people, and giving them opportunity to take care of others. And that's the great joy we get to do here every day at HomeWell. So that is the last kind of question we have on our FAQ there. So I will go ahead and stop the recording.